We're dealing with old problems. Poverty's been around a long time, and we've found the reason why we've been successful is we're constantly coming up with new ways and new approaches to solving these problems.
The reason why I fell in love with Martha's Table is because of our mission. And our mission, we end poverty in the short and long term. Obviously in the short term through food and clothing, in the long term through education.
Where's the fraction on the left? If you add 3 more to this, what do you get?
6.
If you add 3 more to 6, what do you get? I had a child when I was 19 and a half. I had a decision to make, whether or not I was going to quit my job to stay home to watch my child or continue to work and fork my paycheck over to daycare. It's really hard when you can't find safe and sufficient daycare and keep a job at the same time.
The average cost of daycare for a year in Washington, D.C. is $20,000. And that is just such a huge sum that it puts people in impossible choice situations.
Well, my first child, I knew nothing about Martha's Table. But 7 years later, I had another child. I got him registered and set up with Martha's Table, and the tuition, they tweaked it according to my income. They watched my child from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. They allowed me to be able to keep my job.
To really break the long-term cycle of poverty, it takes a long-term approach.
What letter is this? It's in your name. N?
You're giving tools to families to really change long-term patterns, that it isn't something that we do in a month, that somehow then the cycle of poverty is broken.
Once Martha's Table stepped in, I found myself able to save $50 here, $100 here, and at the end of the month I'd have $200. So when it was time to get new clothes or shoes, I had that there. My son, he's graduating this year. He does not have any children. He will be 18 in November, and he's on his way to college. A lot of things I didn't get to do.
When I first started at Martha's Table, I was about between like 8 or 9. A lot of the kids from the neighborhood would go to Martha's Table, and it beat hanging out in the streets and stuff like that because they always had some stuff for us to do.
When you really look at the kids in our communities, one of the things you just don't see is a consistent investment in who these kids are, in affirmations that you are valued. And what we predicate our program on is empowering our young people to answer the most fundamental questions of life. Who am I and how do I belong?
I had stopped going to Martha's Table a little bit after my mom had passed away, and getting arrested and all that kind of pushed me back into going back to Martha's Table and relying on them to help me, get my life back on track. I'm glad they did what they did because, they helped me recognize my potential. Man, they just watched over me and made sure that I was going to be successful.
Martha's Table trained me to understand that kids do not live in our program, they live in communities. And if we don't give our young people the opportunity and the wherewithal to stand up in their moments of truth when they're outside of our program, then they don't have what it takes to make the long-lasting decisions that will change the outcome of their life.
I'm a assistant teacher for about 6.5 years now. My whole goal was to be able to work with kids because I saw the impact that Martha's Table made on my life. So I figured somebody might have a story like mine. So I'm out to do the best I can to help somebody like Martha's Table help me.
The solutions for each person can be very different. And so at Martha's Table, we're providing a variety of solutions because we find that it's necessary.
I am dedicated like a fan to Martha's Table. I don't care where I move, where I work, my children will be going to Martha's Table.
To have effective programs, you just need a large amount of infrastructure, and we're still building it. And I believe we've carved out a niche that no other nonprofit in this city quite has. I believe we're uniquely positioned to really reach a large amount of young people. We're just at the beginning. I just want us to keep going with a full steam ahead.